Hi, everyone. We're Leslie Johnston and Elizabeth England from the National Archives and Records Administration, or NARA, and we're here to talk about updates to the NARA Digital Preservation Framework. So the first step in developing our digital preservation framework was a collections format profile. NARA has been accessioning born digital electronic records since 1970, and we have several electronic record systems that follow different regulations and different needs for the different sets of records. We have federal records, congressional records, census data, and two different systems for presidential records. This meant that we had no single system and no single profile or measure of what we have in our electronic records holdings. We used a manual process to combine reports from all of the systems, so 9 instances of 4 different systems, to create a list of the formats in the holdings. But the reporting from each of those systems didn't match in terms of granularity, given the different tooling for the format analysis and reporting. So, for example, there were different granularity levels for the file formats. E.g., in one system, it would say you have records that are Adobe Acrobat PDF, and in another system, it would say you have records that are Adobe Acrobat PDF 1.4. So this required normalization when we aggregated the data together across the holdings. In 2018, we created a risk matrix, which was designed to apply a series of weighted factors related to preservation sustainability of file formats in that collections format profile. And we used those weighted questions to generate a numeric score. So each question has a relative weighting that maps to the level of risk for each of the questions, and to the extent that it can be defined, resource costs, whether those be staff time or budget, and we cannot always identify resource costs. The matrix also includes some high-level factors that assess the preservation actions that could be taken in our current environment with our current capabilities. We use the numeric scores and map those to high, moderate, and low risk, and those risk thresholds are open to review and revision over time. So this required a lot of assumptions to do this sort of risk analysis. So, the first one is really the openness of the format and the availability of full documentation for that format, which enables us to find tools that allow us to process those files and perform preservation transformations on them if and when needed. The level of adoption of a format translates to a higher likelihood of the availability of tools that can read, display or render or transform the format. Low levels of adoption provide an equally negative effect on format sustainability analysis. The ability to represent and analyze formats directly adds to the sustainability record. The inability to do that has an equal negative impact. The presence of self-documentation, where a file can describe its own characteristics, always provides a higher positive impact than a negative impact if it cannot self-document. All files can provide some basic technical information. Not all have descriptive metadata embedded in them, so all formats are self-documenting to some degree. The requirement to maintain specific software, or in some cases, hardware for some audio, video, and visual formats, has a negative impact on the sustainability than the lack of required software does on the positive impact. Requiring such software or operating systems has cost and expertise implications. The presence or absence of licenses or patents and open source licensing status has limited equal positive or negative impacts on the sustainability. And most importantly, the age of a format is an additive risk factor. All formats have inherent risk, especially the lack of tools for reading or rendering or transformation, so there are no positive potential impacts the risk increases over time based on the age of the format and the currency of its versions and if it's been recently updated. So this is a screenshot from our risk matrix where you can see where some formats might be preferred or acceptable as per our transfer guidance, what sort of risk level, low, moderate, or high, the name, what file extensions are associated, what record type it is, and then some of the questions that we ask and the weighted rankings based on the answers to those questions. And this is an extensive matrix that has several dozen questions associated with the sustainability of each format. So just assessing risk is not enough. We had to actually take those risk assessments and develop actionable plans for them. So the plans identify the essential characteristics for the records that are held by NARA. They document risk and they collate links to specifications, standards, and other digital preservation resources. They also list recommended tools and actions that are based on our current NARA decisions and capabilities. And the plans are two sets of documents. The first are plans for the record types, the record type plans. These document the essential characteristics for each record type, such as email, GIS, databases, still images, textual, and documents characteristics under appearance, structure, behavior, and context. So these are properties that, if possible, should be retained in any format migration. And so these are also great metrics to use to test potential tools that you might be using for preservation migrations. We also have the preservation action plans, which is a single spreadsheet that contains over 500 variant file format versions across all the record types. And there's where you will find the specifications, the resource links, the format information and descriptions, including MIME types and extensions, and our list of preservation actions that we currently take. And we've structured it this way to ensure that the framework is both actionable and extensible for other institutions. So this is an image from the record type plan for digital still images or raster images, where it shows some of the description of the files as well as some of the factors for appearance and structure, the essential characteristics. And this is an image from the file preservation action plans showing a list of the formats, links to the standards and specifications, URIs for other references, and this is where you will also find what our current tools and actions are. And now I will pass it over to Elizabeth.
Hello. So in 2019, NARA released a draft of the digital preservation framework on GitHub for public comment. Feedback generally fell into a few categories. We needed to clarify that the plans represent NARA's current practices based on current infrastructure and capabilities and are not recommendations for the entire archival field. We needed to provide more granular description by breaking format families down to the versions. This has enabled better one-to-one matching with resources such as Pronom and Wikidata for digital preservation. There were also suggestions of formats to include for analysis, such as calendars, ebooks, some statistical data and database formats. Between this and breaking the families down into versions, we added more than 150 new entries for a total of 500 plus format preservation action plans, as Leslie said. For each format entry, we provided links to the other resources such as Pronom, Library of Congress, Wikidata for digital preservation. And for the more than 500 file format preservation action plans, we moved them from being in text documents to a single spreadsheet and CSV file in order to make them more actionable and support linked data mining for Wikidata for digital preservation as we're working towards that. Next slide. After completing those revisions, we re-released the Digital Preservation Framework in June 2020. You can access it at this URL, github.com/US National Archives/digital-preservation. The framework is available in the public domain, so use and reuse are widely encouraged. We know some other institutions have been using it to conduct risk analysis and preservation planning on their collections, so we love hearing about that and getting your feedback. You can submit feedback and questions at any time through GitHub issues. The framework can be used across the life cycle. Its sustainability metrics provide context for records creator and management guidance, are integrated into electronic record selection and appraisal criteria, are used in evaluating processing and preservation tools, and support the selection of formats used when providing public access. And the plans are iterative and will continue to add formats, update our preservation recommendations, update our practices with new tools, and revise the plans with links to new and updated community resources. Next slide. This is just a part of NARA's digital preservation work. Some of our other activities include ongoing format research for transfer guidance and risk assessment. Most recently, NARA has added navigational charts as a record type for transfer guidance, and the Digital Preservation Unit has incorporated this record type and related file formats into the framework. We're also responsible for coordinating annual reviews and updates to standard operating procedures, or SOPs, across custodial and digitization units, and maintaining copies of digitization and digital preservation related SOPs. We also maintain a growing internal library of format specifications and standards, both official and reverse engineered ones by the community. And we've been doing an ongoing review of digital preservation program maturity using the PTAB ISO 16363 self-assessment instrument for trustworthy digital repositories. And finally, continuous improvement to our cloud-based ERA 2.0 processing and preservation repository. Thank you so much for having us, and you can reach us at any point with questions or comments to chat about our work. Thank you.
Thank you.